Hello, my name is Matt Shar. Today, we are going to discuss the concept of free will as evidence of the existence of God. This line of reasoning falls under the umbrella of a subject called natural theology. Natural theology is the branch of theology that derives evidence and arguments for the existence of God by performing a logical analysis of aspects of reality that are best explained by his existence. While the arguments from natural theology can be used to establish the existence of a personal creator God, they will not help one to specify the identity of the God who actually exists. This is different from revealed theology, which derives its evidence and arguments for a specific God through direct revelation and/or divine intervention in history. As an example, the Bible would be direct revelation, and the resurrection of our Lord Jesus would be divine intervention in history. One of the main benefits of using arguments from natural theology is that they are generally derived by analyzing universal aspects of human experience. This is helpful because denying their legitimacy will generally result in one having to either deny an obvious fact of reality or admit to believing some kind of logical absurdity. This brings us to today's topic, free will.
Free will is defined as having the ability to freely choose a thought or action, initiating a new chain of events.
Throughout the ages, humans have had many disagreements about the nature of reality, but one thing that every single one of us has in common is our internal sense experience of being able to freely choose our thoughts and actions. If this sense experience of having the freedom to freely choose our thoughts and actions is grounded in an objective reality, then it turns out that we have powerful evidence that a personal creator God exists and is responsible for bringing us into existence. In order to understand the logical steps between humans having true free will and the existence of a personal creator God, we need to begin by considering the nature of the material universe and asking ourselves if this physical reality is all that exists. If a person answers this question in the affirmative, they hold a view called naturalism.
Naturalism is the opinion that only natural laws and forces operate in the universe. Adherents of naturalism believe that the laws of physics exclusively determine everything that happens within the material universe. This view of reality is also known as materialism.
If naturalism is true, everything that ever has happened, or will happen, is nothing more than an unbroken chain of physical causes and effects, with everything being determined strictly by the laws of physics. On a naturalistic view, nothing lies outside of the control of these laws, and everything that exists is just matter bouncing around, being propelled by mindless, unguided forces. This includes the formation of planets, the supposed evolution of humans, and even the various functions of our brains. If this is true, then this would include the chemical composition of our brains and the firing of our neurons at any given time. The chemical composition of our brains and the firing of our neurons at a given time is known as our brain state. We have no control over our brain state, so if our brain state determines our thoughts and actions, we have no actual control over our thoughts or actions. On the naturalistic view, our brain states determine the way we think and react to various stimuli. So if naturalism is true, our thoughts and actions are inviolably and exclusively determined by the laws of physics. All this to say, there is absolutely no room for humans having true free will in a naturalistic worldview. The vast majority of modern atheist apologists recognize this to be the case, and have declared free will to be a delusion. In fact, modern neuroscience has revealed that our brain state changes in response to a certain stimulus before we even realize that we have made a decision. So from the naturalist perspective, this is proof positive that our brain state predetermines our choices, and there is no such thing as free will. The view that there is no such thing as free will is known as determinism.
Determinism is defined as the opinion that all events, including human thoughts and actions, are causally determined by preceding physical events, which are governed exclusively by the laws of physics.
But what if free will is not a delusion? What if we actually have the ability to choose our thoughts and actions and are autonomous beings? What if our brain state changes in response to a stimulus, then we have the ability to freely choose how we will react to that change? Well, if free will is real, then that means our thoughts and actions are not determined by the laws of physics. Everything that is made of matter functions in a way that is determined by the laws of physics. So if our thoughts and actions are not determined by the laws of physics, then they come from a source that is not made of matter. But if our thoughts and actions come from a non-material source, then where do they come from? This brings us to a concept called mind-body dualism.
Mind-body dualism is the opinion that the mind and the body, including the brain, are distinct and separable entities. On this view, mental activities like thoughts are non-material, whereas the functioning of our brains is a material phenomenon.
According to mind-body dualism, our non-material minds are distinct from our material brains. On this view, we are non-material persons who experience and interact with material reality through our brains and bodies. Our non-material minds are what the Bible identifies as souls. Our souls are who we truly are. We do not have souls, we are souls. We have bodies. While our bodies are material, exist only on the physical level, and are governed by the laws of physics, our souls are non-material, exist on the spiritual level, and are not subject to the laws of physics. On a dualistic view, your brain state changes in response to a given stimuli, then you, as a non-material mind, choose how to respond to that brain state. On this view, we have a robust explanation of reality as we perceive it, including human free will, and do not have to believe ourselves to be delusional.
How does free will imply the existence of God?
Even if it was the case that the laws of physics were responsible for producing everything that exists within the material universe, non-material things are outside of their productive capacity. That being the case, if we are non-material minds, or souls, then there must be some kind of non-material creative force that exists independently of the laws of physics, which is responsible for creating our non-material minds or souls and pairing them with our material bodies. This creative force can either be a mindless, impersonal law like gravity, or a personal agent with a mind. Unless one is willing to say that they believe there is a mindless law that exists independently of the laws of physics, which just so happens to randomly produce human souls and pair them with human bodies whenever a human is conceived, they will have to accept that the force is a personal agent, who possesses the intelligence and power needed to create a mind, along with the ability to choose to pair the mind or soul with each human body. Both intelligence and the ability to choose are properties of a mind, so the best explanation is that this creative force is personal. The immaterial, personal, powerful, intelligent creator of human souls who is responsible for pairing our souls with our bodies is the being that theists identify as God. Now we will break down the argument into its individual steps so that it can be easily memorized and shared with others.
Step 1. Everything that is material functions in a way that is determined by the laws of physics. Step 2. If we have true free will, then our thoughts and actions are not determined by the laws of physics. Step 3. Universal human experience informs us that we do have true free will, so our thoughts and actions are not determined by the laws of physics. Conclusion. Therefore, our thoughts and actions originate from a source that is non-material. The non-material source of our thoughts and actions is called our mind, or soul.
Once we have established that we are immaterial minds or souls inhabiting material human bodies, the steps to demonstrating the existence of a personal, intelligent creator are quite simple. This argument works even if the person is operating under the assumption that the laws of physics alone are sufficient to produce the material universe and that evolution took place.
Step 1. Non-material things lie outside of the productive capacity of the laws of physics. Step 2. Humans are non-material minds or souls inhabiting material bodies. Conclusion. There is a creative force that exists independently of the laws of physics that creates our non-material minds and pairs them with our material human bodies. The idea that this creator is impersonal is absurd, so it is most reasonable to conclude that the creator is a personal agent.
If a person denies that we have the ability to freely choose our thoughts and actions, we can point out some of the absurdities that are inherent within that view.
Reductio ad absurdum is Latin for reduction to absurdity. This form of argumentation is employed to demonstrate that a claim is true, because the claim being false would result in one having to accept a belief that is either contradictory, self-defeating, or so foolish that it is not worthy of serious consideration.
If we do not have the ability to freely choose our thoughts and decisions, then we are not truly able to reason between true and false propositions or choose to believe the true proposition either. The laws of physics are mindless and unguided forces that do not function in a way that guides us to accepting true propositions and rejecting false ones. The sense of reasoning between propositions that we experience would be nothing more than random sequences of chemicals forming and neurons firing in our brains. We would be no more likely to land on a true proposition than dice are to land on one set of numbers over another. So if we do not have true free will, then we have no reason to believe that anything we think is actually true, including the idea that free will is a delusion. Another absurdity that is inherent in the denial of the existence of free will is that there is no reason to stop there. Once a person is willing to deny the legitimacy of one aspect of human experience that is universal to all of us, then where is the line? Any argument a person could make to suggest that our sense of free will is a delusion could equally be applied to suggest that any of our other senses are delusions as well. We trust our material senses like sight and our non-material senses like logic, especially when those senses are confirmed by others. So there's no good reason to arbitrarily decide that our free will is the only universal human sense experience that is a delusion. One very dangerous implication inherent in believing that we do not have free will is that it removes moral accountability for anything a person does. A boulder rolling down a hill has no ability to choose to deviate from a certain path because it is strictly governed by the laws of physics. In the same way, if our thoughts and actions are determined by the laws of physics, we have no ability to choose to deviate from our actions either. On this view, there is no reason to praise a person who gives everything they have to charity, or to condemn a serial killer for murder. Neither person was freely choosing to behave the way they did, any more than a pop can freely chooses to explode when opened.
The most common argument against humans existing as non-material minds inhabiting material bodies is called the argument from brain damage. The argument is stated as follows. When our brain chemistry is altered by substances, or our brain is injured in some way, our mental abilities are impaired. Therefore, our mental processes are solely a product of our material brains.
This is not a valid argument against the concept of our being non-material minds inhabiting material bodies, because no one is disputing that our material bodies are the means by which our minds interact with and experience the material universe. This objection is equivalent to saying that a radio wave does not exist because our cell phone does not work properly when it is damaged. In summary, we discussed the fact that naturalism is the view that the material universe is all that exists, and that this view leaves no room for free will. Then, we discussed the fact that mind-body dualism is the view that humans are non-material minds inhabiting material bodies, and how this view explains free will perfectly. Then, we discussed the fact that the laws of physics cannot account for our minds existing, and how this leads us to conclude that a personal creator God exists.
If humans are non-material souls inhabiting material bodies, we are rationally justified in believing that our soul survives the death of our material body. Thus, our identity would remain intact in the afterlife. Therefore, we are rationally justified in believing that we will be reunited with our loved ones in the afterlife.
In closing, denying the existence of free will is generally the result of a person realizing, but not wanting to accept, the theological implications of our having free will. The majority of the non-believers that you will encounter in your day-to-day life will most likely not have ever even stopped to consider the logical or theological implications of our having free will. So the next time you're seeking an opportunity to share your faith and you're not sure what to say, just ask them, "Do you believe we have free will?" Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.